welcome back. So this video is going to be my review of Ruin and Rising, the third and final book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy written by Leigh Bardugo. This book is probably my second favorite of the series. It might be my last. I still haven't decided. It might even be tied with Shadow and Bone. It wasn't my favorite. There were a few things that I really loved and a few things that I didn't like, so let's get into it. So as you can see from this one, unlike the other two, there are no bookmarks in this whatsoever, or tabs or whatever. I just decided to read for the sake of reading. So the book opens up where it left off again. Elena, Mal, Tamara, Toya, Zoya. Yeah. They're in the underground place with the apparat, and this is where my hatred for this character really starts to grow. So, as I mentioned before, he's this really religious person and all that fun stuff, but he essentially uses Elena like as a weapon down there. He's like, listen, you can't escape. You know, you're down here. I'm in control down here. You need to understand that. You're going to go out there. You're going to pretend to be a saint to these people. Her power isn't working, so they do it with the help of like other Grisha, just like smoke and mirrors type of deal. So, you know, she does that, all that, and he's controlling her, and I really don't like him. His character is so unnecessary. I felt like this was just another bad guy that we didn't really need, and he's not even like a good bad guy. He's literally just there. He kind of controls her for the first chapter, and then the group breaks free. They set up this plot, and they just break free, and then they go through, you know, they threaten him and tell him, hey, here's what you're going to do. You're not going to come after us again. We're going to leave. We're going to go help the city. You're going to stay down here, essentially. So the group travels through this entire, like, cave system and whatnot, and basically they have to stop every once in a while because I believe bombs or something have been going off. The Darkling has been... he survived his last encounter, in case you couldn't tell, and he's now on the Ravka throne. Like, he owns it. There's still no sign of Nikolai. He's presumed dead as well as everyone else. No one knows where anyone is. So the Darkling's on the throne. He's bombing essentially the city, trying to get them to come up, if that makes sense. So they finally sneak back into Ravka. And also, I kind of forgot to mention this, but in the cave system, there's a collapse, and we get to see how powerful of a Grisha Zoya really is. She's a squaller, so she's air currents and that kind of stuff, and she changes the air in the cave system to be able to, you know, make her voice resonate to a certain specific area, which is really cool. I actually really like that aspect of her. And like I said again, her character really grows on me in this book, and I actually really enjoy her a lot and the power that she brings. So yeah, thankfully she didn't stay the same as in the first book, because I would have cried. So the group that goes with them, I'm not really going to mention them. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really feel anything for them except for Zoya. I think that was really the only one that kind of made an impression on me. The others, they're just kind of there, they're side characters. They have a few character moments, but it's nothing that makes me, like, you know, care about them in any way, shape, or form, but, you know. So, they're going through the woods. They're still trying to find Nikolai, because there have been rumors that he's been spotted somewhere around there. And they're attacked by a few of the Darkling soldiers and taken captive. Fortunately, though, Nikolai's soldiers, they come and rescue them with a flying ship and all that. And during this scene, we actually find out that Mal has gotten a giant tattoo on his back, which basically just means warrior, essentially. That's really all he's good for, is just fighting, and he's devoted himself to Elena, and that nothing will happen to her. So he went from hating her and acting like a middle schooler to protecting her with his life in like a flip of the dime. Like, it wasn't the smoothest of transitions, I'll say that. He's kind of jumped, and in last book he was the middle schooler. In this book he's kind of the lovesick high schooler of that I'll do anything you say, just tell me to jump and I'll ask how high, you know, that kind of deal, which was kind of annoying. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't my favorite aspect of the book. So yeah, I just don't like Mal. I'm so sorry, I just don't like him. But yeah, anyway, they get picked up and the ship takes them to Nikolai's hideout, which is in the mountains. Basically, there's been a royal hideout there for a while that Nikolai is now using. So that's where they're hiding out in this little like mountain system and whatnot. And guess who's there? The old blind woman with the walking stick. She made it. Okay, so basically, her and Elena, they talk some more about the amplifiers and the power, etc., etc. And then they're not there long until the Darkling finds them and attacks them again. And so now we're kind of going into like spoiler territory, so just heads up. And this time, he corners Nikolai and Elena and the old blind woman with the walking stick. And before Elena could really do anything, the Darkling has his creatures like latch on to Nikolai or whatnot, and this black liquid like goes down his throat, and he actually turns into one of the monsters that, you know, the Darkling has created or whatnot. So Nikolai is now under the control of the Darkling essentially. So he's like this beast now, and that actually really got to me because, as Elena put it, you know, you see like this strong, handsome, charismatic, funny dude just transform into like this beast that, you know, you could barely recognize. And she could still see some of Nikolai in there, and could tell that he was like scared and all that. And that really like just broke my heart. I was like, no. So, yeah, before he can really do anything to Elena though, the old blind woman with the walking stick, she jumps off the mountain or the railing or whatnot, and the Darkling tries to save her. And again, this is another character building moment where Elena sees that the Darkling isn't just this heartless like creature. Like, he actually really cared for his mother despite what he did to her eyes. You know, it's described in a way as like he loved her, but the power was ultimately more important. But when she jumped, he cried and like went after her. He couldn't save her, so she died. So Elena and Mal and Zoya and a few others, they managed to get away, while a few others that were in their group that I kind of mentioned I don't really particularly care about, they jumped off the ship because there was too much weight on it, and they fought off the creatures, and they ended up, you know, dying trying to save everyone. But the boat gets away, and so yeah. And Elena, through their connection, and throughout this book, she's actually managed to go to the Darkling instead of him coming to her through like the visions and all that kind of stuff. So that just strengthens their bond right there. But she feels the pull once they escape from the Darkling, but she doesn't go to him. But she says that she knows somewhere, wherever he is, he's grieving, and that really struck me hard. I was like, oh no, just comfort Darkling, just comfort him. Like, he must be protected at all costs. Like, I just felt so bad for him, and that's exactly what I want in my villains. I want to be able to feel bad for them. You know, they're villains the majority of the time, don't get me wrong. There are a few that, you know, are acceptable to be just crazed maniacs and whatnot. But the majority of the time, I like my villains to have a reason for what they're doing and a human side to them. You know, I like to be able to feel what they're feeling, to go through what they're going, understand why they're doing what they're doing, but at the same time realizing what they're doing is extremely wrong. But I need to be able to understand why they're doing it, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what happens in this book with the Darkling. It just like cements his character even further. So that was really well done. Just hats off to you, like Leigh Bardugo. Like that was amazing. The villains in this they're amazing. Like the Darkling is one of the best developed villains I've ever read in a book ever. So So the group continues to chase the third amplifier, what they think is the third amplifier, which is the Firebird, I believe it's called. And they think it's somewhere in these mountains. Mal's tracking it, he's leading them on and all that. And they finally reach the mountains, and there's more character development and all that kind of stuff. And they find it. Elena actually finds it, and this bird turns out to actually not be an amplifier. Like, she can't sense it, it's not there. They were wrong this entire time. And they're like, well, if that's not the amplifier, then what is the third amplifier? Because that bird was our last hope, and now there's nothing. So that was a nice little twist, because, to be honest, the plot for this book was kind of getting a bit predictable, because in the other two books, one of them, Shadow and Bone, it ended with them finding the stag, getting the amplifier. The second one, it began with them finding, the sea witch, finding the second amplifier and getting it. And this one, I'm like, oh, so it's going to end again, just like the first book, where they find the amplifier, they get it, all's well and done, congratulations. But that didn't happen. I was like, oh, okay, it's a break in the formula, that's really nice. But then it kind of throws us for another loophole, and Elena discovers that Mal is the third amplifier, and that's how he's so good at tracking, because the amplifiers, like, this one in particular relates him to every creature, like, on the planet, I guess. So if he thinks about it, he'll find it. That's how he could find these impossible two amplifiers and all that kind of stuff, because he could sense them. And so that was kind of a cool twist, that Mal was the amplifier, but I also kind of didn't like it, because throughout this book, Mal is really the only normal one. He's the only real human person in the entire group, and I kind of like that simplicity, that he was kind of the odd man out. He felt left out, he didn't have any special powers, he had to rely on a gun, that kind of stuff. I kind of like that. And then it's almost a cliche that we get at the beginning of Shadow and Bone, with this girl who's simply normal, and then all of a sudden, boom, has power, unexplainable power. Now everyone just wants a piece of her. That's kind of what happened here. He was a boy, human, that's it, simple. And boom, all of a sudden, he's the third amplifier. And so everyone will be hunting him now. So, like, I kind of like the twist, but I also kind of didn't. I was kind of on the fence. I still don't know really which side of the fence I fall towards, but I'm just in the middle with that twist, I guess. I don't know. Also, Elena, during the night, she sees Nikolai and realizes that Nikolai and this creature is actually following them. He doesn't attack them, I don't believe, but he follows them, and there's blood on his face from him eating, like, other people and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a cool little point to just see how far he had fallen, to where, this has happened, but he still had enough humanity in him to not attack Elena or anyone else. It was just kind of sad, if that makes sense. The group decides to hide out in this town next, and while they're there, Mal and Elena have a romantic scene between the two, and of course we get the inner thoughts of, I'm not pretty enough, this doesn't look right, that doesn't look right, this shouldn't be happening to me. That kind of stuff. I'm just kind of tired of it at this point. Like, I get it, because you really like the boy, and this is like an intense moment between you two, and all that, but at the same time, it's been hammered into me, like, these past 3 books, that this girl isn't pretty, and yet, like, everyone surrounding her thinks otherwise, and I just couldn't care less about her insecurities when it came to this scene in particular. So yeah, I just didn't care. I've come to peace with the fact that it was with Mal. I wanted her to be with Nikolai. I could see her being with Nikolai or the Darkling, but at the same time, it's also like I couldn't see her with them, because the Darkling is this mass murderer and Nikolai is this prince. So I guess Mal was really the only choice for her. It's not my favorite of the pick. Kind of disappointed, but I've come to peace with it. The group makes a plan to attack the Darkling. They know where he's hiding out now. And so they actually find out that Elena, using her light power, can reflect light in such a way that it mirrors. So they eventually become like invisible, that kind of stuff. It just reflects the particles and all that kind of stuff. And so they're going to use that to their advantage. So I believe it's her and Mal are going to sneak onto the Darkling ship that's docked or whatnot and be invisible and attack them while other people wait in the grass with fire because they have an inferno and all that kind of other stuff. So yeah, when they attack, I'm not gonna lie, it's a mosh podge of just pure chaos, and that's not particularly a good thing because it felt rushed. Like, I'm all for a lot of chaos towards the end of a book. Like in Crooked Kingdom, the last fourth of the book, it was just bam, 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 bam. But it was paced out in such a way where nothing felt rushed. Like, you could feel it being rushed because the characters felt rushed, but the overall plot didn't feel that way. It felt, natural progression, and it just happened to take place in a few, minutes or so. This one, everything just happens. Like, bam, 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 bam. More people die. You don't really care about them because the characters Elena just kind of glosses over them. You never really got to know them, even on the road. It was just like, okay, I'm sorry for your loss, I guess. That's cool. So yeah, more people die. And Mal made Elena promise that if they became outnumbered and all that, which they eventually do, that she would kill him because he's the third amplifier and she needs his power to defeat the Darkling. So finally she gets the nerve and she kills Mal, except he doesn't die. She feels her power like draining from her, and the amplifier that he had that made him like relate to like all the earth and that kind of stuff, it shoots out back into the earth. So the fold is, becomes fixed and all this light. And the Darkling, in this confusion, he's so shocked by this because he thought that, she was going to get the third amplifier or whatnot. He's so shocked by what the third amplifier does that he freezes and looks away, and Mal stabs him. Or not Mal, Elena stabs him. His death, I actually really liked his death. There's actually one scene in particular that I want to read. I don't know if I can find it, but I felt so bad for the Darkling. And like, I felt bad about just everything about him. Like, well done, like, honestly. Okay, so I found the scene, and I forgot to tell you guys throughout this, but yeah, he actually tells Elena his real name. It's like Alexander or something like that. And so, he's laying there dying. His monsters are being destroyed, and he says, "Elena," the Darkling repeated, his fingers sinking mine. I was surprised to find fresh tears filling my eyes. He reached up and brushed his knuckles over the wetness on my cheek. The smallest smile touched his blood-stained lips. "Someone to mourn me." He dropped his hand as if the weight was too much. "No grave," he gasped, his hands tightening on mine, "for them to desecrate." "All right," I said, the tears came harder. "There will be nothing left." He shuddered, his eyelids drooped. "Once more," he said, "speak my name once more." He was ancient, I knew that, but in this moment, he was just a boy, buoyant, blessed with too much power, burdened by eternity. "Alexander." His eyes fluttered shut. "Don't let me be alone," he murmured, and then he was gone. Just reading that scene right there literally almost made me cry. I can't remember if I actually cried while I read that, but that just like hit me hard. It's just the fact that, he's this immortal person, and yet in this moment, he tells her, I don't want them to desecrate my grave. I know they will. I know bad things are going to come even in my death. Don't let them do that. And that was just touching. And my favorite line of this entire thing is, I'll read it again. He was ancient, I knew that, but in this moment he was just a boy, brilliant, blessed with too much power, burdened by eternity. That those few sentences was beautiful. Like, that is literature. Like, that just hits hard to think about it, you know? So he dies, and like, it just broke me, man. Like, one of my favorite characters just died. I was like, oh no. Like, it's so sad. It's so sad because you understand where he was coming from, why he was doing what he was doing. And the fact that he didn't achieve it and he knew what was next for him is just like heartbreaking, because he was actually really trying to help his people. And it's fermented more in the short story that they put in here. If I can find it. Here we go. It's called The Demon in the Wood. It further cements that he honestly couldn't find another way to deal with this. Like, this was the only way that he saw, and he was honestly just trying to do the right thing. He just did it the wrong way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I honestly loved that death scene, like, so much. It was just, oh god, it broke me. It broke me. So with the Creatures story, Nikolai comes back to normal, except for like a few scars. His fingertips, I believe, are black and that kind of stuff. Which kind of leads us into the King of Scars, which I actually was kind of concerned about reading, but I think I'm going to read. I'm concerned about it because I don't want this universe to be too hammered upon, because we have the Shadow and Bone trilogy, then we have the Six of Crows duology, and now we have the King of Scars. And I don't want this to happen like it did kind of with the Mortal Instruments, where there's so many books based in the same universe that repeat some characters to where it's just tired out. I don't want that, but I read the first chapter of it from the back of Crooked Kingdom, I believe. And I think I'm going to believe it, or read it, because Nikolai is one of my favorite characters. So this book, it low-key ends almost too perfectly. Really, actually, yeah, it ends too perfectly. They make a fake Darkling, so the Genya, she tailors a dead corpse, I believe, to look like the Darkling, and what the Darkling said would happen happens. I believe they like burn his body or whatnot, and they curse his name and all that kind of stuff, which is really sad. And they do the same with Elena's body. They use one of the side characters that I failed to mention because I just didn't care. Her name's Ruby. She was low-key in the first book and low-key in the second book and low-key in this book, just as a random side character. So Ruby worshipped Elena, like, with a passion, like, got tattoos of her, everything. So they think it's fitting if she's the one that is portrayed as Elena. So they do the burial service for them, and so Nikolai spots her in the crowd, and the crowd is saying Sancta Elena and all that, and it's decided that her and Mal are going to hide out for the rest of their lives. Like, they're just going to live. They're not going to get involved in politics again and anything like that. They're just going to go someplace nice and quiet where they can just relax and be themselves. So that's kind of like one of those endings where every piece kind of falls together and it's a bit too perfect. Besides the Darkling, everything's a bit too perfect. But, you know, for what it was a good ending. And I also like the last line of this. It says, no one knew his name to curse or extol, so I spoke it softly beneath my breath. Alexander, I whispered, a boy's name given up, almost forgotten. And that's how it ends, except for the after. But, you know, the after is really just them hiding out, not doing really anything, just eating cake, and their life is full of ordinary things. If love can even be called that. So, yeah. I like this book. As you can see, the Dark Lane in this book I loved more than I loved in the other two. His death hit me so hard. Whoo! I almost cried. I gave this book 4 stars, but it's probably tied with Shadow and Bone or below Shadow and Bone for my favorite to least favorite or whatnot. But yeah, I liked it. It was a good read. I'm glad that I finished this trilogy. So I'm not disappointed that I read it at all. So that's good, you know. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. And if you haven't already followed me on all my other social media accounts such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, those will be listed down in the description below. And hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!